Hi, this is Dr. Sean Benzinger with the seminar today of stress. Stress is an important seminar, one of the most important seminars I will ever do for you, simply because the understanding of all the factors of stress, how it reacts in your body, could change everything that you go through from this point forward in understanding why you get sick, what predisposes you to illness, and what you can do about it, and, God willing, prevent it from occurring in the first place. Stress is a big issue. Most people think of stress, or I say stress, and they'll come up with a very specific meaning to stress. Mental stress, emotional stress, money stress, whatever, physical stress, chemical stresses. It goes on and on. We're going to try to delve into that to make some sense for you today so that you can go home, evaluate your stress or stressors, how they affect you, and make a difference. For those that have not tuned us into secondopinion.org, I beg of you to do so. Secondopinion.org, O-R-G, secondopinion.org, O-R-G. Sign up for our free newsletter. The reason for it, every week there'll be a different author and a radio interview with that author that you can download and listen to, a video review of the book, a video review of the article that's related to that topic matter, as well as educational seminar information that will be readily available on a weekly basis. We'll be taking you through education on why vitamins, why not vitamins, what type of vitamins, what type are no good, what type of environmental stresses are affecting you. It goes on and on and on, because in the healthcare field, literally, we could be doing this for 30 years and barely scratch the surface of something that you might be dealing with. But getting the understanding of what stress is and how it affects you is the number one thing we're trying to get done today. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about what do we know about stress. Life is stressful, we know that. And the truth is, stress can be harmful to your health, and we do know that it can not be health. Let me back up. The point of it is, certain things in stress, such as gravity, such as certain tensions that occur in our body, are actually what is normal and healthy for us to go through, because if we do not go through those things, frankly, we won't grow or thrive. If I always ask my kids, tell me one thing that you've learned in the best of situations comparison to the worst of situations, and they'll say, yeah, I always seem to learn the most when things are not going that well and when things are actually very, very difficult. So the point of it is, stress is an issue that most of the time we learn through the hardship that we go through, but we don't need it to harm our health. So let's talk about the symptoms of stress, what is harmful stress and what is not. And we're going to talk about Hans Selye, who's a PhD that researched stress for quite a few years, over 30 years, and came up with something called a GAS, a G-A-S, a three-phase factor associated with health and stress and its reaction. Chemical, physiological effects, stress relievers and how to reduce them, and what do you need to know and how to do it. Now, life's most stressful events: death of a spouse, divorce, marital separation, spending time in jail, death of a close family member, personal illness and injury, marriage, stressful event, pregnancy, two stressful events, and retirement. Stress from these events may last up to 2 years or more. In other words, the events associated with, or the aftermath of a divorce. The aftermath, I mean, you could literally get married, go through pregnancy, and get divorced in a 2-year period of time. You think about where your stress scale will be then, and this is not far away from realistic. Marital separation gets in that, death of a spouse as we get older. So we look at death of a spouse, marital separation, and retirement. They happen. You know, you and I experience these things. What we know is at high risk, 3 or more of these events can affect your health over a 5-year period of time. We've all seen the situation where people have went through stress and then start developing disease processes in the body. Guess what probably induced them? Stress. Maybe one of these. These are some of the more stressful events that somebody can go through. Symptoms of stress: trouble sleeping, headaches, lack of energy, lack of concentration, constipation or diarrhea, irritability, anger, sadness, or tension, eating too much or not enough. I wish I had the not enough thing. I have the I want to eat too much if stress gets too high. I don't know about you, but that's me. Anyhow, stomach cramping and bloating. Higher risk of asthma now and arthritis flare-ups. Maybe other stresses such as arguing with your spouse seems to flare up your arthritis, or the child gets more asthmatic attacks when mom and dad are fighting. Guess what? It happens. It happens a lot. Skin problems like hives, depression, anxiety, solely induced from stress. I've got so many stories on that. I can't tell you. I wish we could just do one series on that, but otherwise you'd be watching for an eternity, and I'm sure you don't have that much time. Weight gain and weight loss. Okay, some people put on weight when they're stressed. That's me. Unfortunately, that's my body type. Some people just drop weight excessively under stressful situations. Then we wish we had a pill for that. Heart problems and high blood pressure are also related to stress. We know that just walking into the doctor's office in a stressful situation, for some people have white coat syndrome. In other words, that tension elevates your blood pressure to a level that's unhealthy for you. Diabetes can be a result of bad stresses over a period of time, because that can be the foods you're eating too. And cancer concerns can occur from symptoms of stress, emotional stress, diet stresses, and life stresses. Musculoskeletal back pain, achiness, stiffness, stress. If I'm overly tired over a long enough period of time, which that would be my stressor, being tired, I will get low back discomfort. Less sexual drive. Isn't it interesting? It's not mentioned. Increased sexual drive under stressful situations. It might be temporary, but over a period of time, less sexual drive seems to be the normal response. That is too bad too, isn't it? Harmful stress is not nervous tension, normal exercise or activities. It's not deviating from a normal homeostasis. Today, I didn't get eight glasses of water and take vitamins and exercise. Okay, that's an abnormal stress in your body. But usually, if you get right back to it, body will go right back to normal. Being excited about things with nervous tension, nothing wrong with it. Or a single symptom that's not a big symptom that seems to go away quickly. I will have people call me or come in and they say, oh, I just wanted you to check out my knee. My knee, I had this horrible pain on Sunday. I said, okay, well, how long did it last? Oh, about 10 seconds. I just couldn't even put pressure on it. I said, well, have you had it before? No. Have you had it since? No. I'm going, if we don't find anything structurally wrong, guess what? We're probably going to be out of luck, because that symptom that came and went in seconds, probably something we won't track down until something else happens. A single syndrome is not harmful stress in most cases. Okay? How do we determine harmful stress? For you, and that's the key. Your basic individuality is the key to understanding this. If you're unwilling to work to find out your stressors, don't expect a book to label you, because it isn't going to happen. We won't cover that in too far depth, but just wanted to mention to you, okay? If you'll look on our calendar, you'll find that there's all kinds of seminars on different topic matters, all of them ending up discussing one key component, is that you're unique and that what affects you is completely different in comparison to someone else, and only you can find that out. So let's look at Hans Selye's General Adaptation Syndrome, GAS. Short for gas. So we're going to say gas. It doesn't really mean the gas you might be thinking about or what you put in your car, but sometimes gives people a snicker. Okay? General Adaptation Syndrome. Phase 1, alarm phase. Phase 2, stage of resistance. And phase 3, stage of exhaustion. Let's talk about number 1. Selye says general adaptation system is an all or nothing effect. All or nothing. It's kind of like a muscle contraction. You can't have a partial contraction. It contracts the whole way depending on the force. But just because it contracts, the whole muscle is going to be involved to some extent. Same thing happens when a general adaptation syndrome occurs. When it occurs, the rock goes all the way down the mountainside into the valley. Okay? So phase 1 is called the alarm reaction. Due to some shock, psychologically, spiritually, or physically, or chemically, anything can cause that shock. Anything. So your general adaptation syndrome, your gas, could be started, an all or nothing reaction, from any stressor that affects you. See, if my wife and I get in an argument, I might be terribly offended by that, and it'd bother me all day and cause me to go through a gas. While for you, it's no big deal. That's what you do. You guys argue. It doesn't bother you. You can say all kinds of mean things. You still love each other right afterwards and everything's fine. Wish a lot more of us had that issue. But that's not usually what happens. Anything, a sprained ankle, you go out and you burn yourself in the sun, you drink 13,000 cans of Diet Coke that day, just insane things. And sometimes it doesn't take insane things, and that's what we're going to talk about later. But here's the response. Your adrenals, which is your anti-inflammatory, one of your key components of anti-inflammatory and handling stress, is this little organ that's as big as the tip of your thumb on both sides, and it sits above your kidneys. That little adrenal gland is the important key, one of the key organs that will respond to this gas, this first phase of gas. The second thing is your nervous system responds with this kind of this hyperreaction. You know, you ever had this burst of energy and you're just running around like crazy. You get all this stuff done and you don't even know why. You might be going through a gas. So in the beginning, it doesn't feel too bad. But at the end, you start wondering if there's something major going on in association with it. General nervous system response. Your thymus, which is part of your immune system, shrinks. In other words, it actually starts decreasing in size from this one event. Or maybe it was multiple events build up together until finally it affected you. Decreased body fluids. You ever just jump on the scales, all of a sudden, I'm like 3 pounds lighter. Oh my gosh, I finally broke through. I finally broke through the whatever, the 100-pound list. Now I'm 97 pounds. It's so good. Oh, this is really great. But there was nothing you did to make a difference. You've been eating like a pig for 3 days. There was really no other reason for it. You haven't been exercising. You haven't been getting enough sleep. But all of a sudden you got this 3-pound drop. Well, guess what? Probably not going to stay, is it? It's what happens. Your body shoves out a lot of fluid in a traumatic event. Okay? Have you ever noticed when you get, if you got a speaking engagement or an important date or an important project that's coming up and is due, guess what happens? For me, I'll go to the restroom, I'll urinate more, very frequently before I go through those events because of that tension that's occurring, okay? Well, when you go through this, it's an extreme form of tension, and you might lose body fluids, and that is where your weight loss was, and not because you lost all this fat, okay? And what's funny is people say, oh yeah, everything fit really well, but 2 weeks later it was right back. Well, guess what? You probably just went through a general adaptation syndrome. Pancreas reaction. As the adrenals go up in action, so does the pancreas and insulin does. So, unfortunately, during that time, pancreas goes into getting all that blood sugar that's inside your blood into your cells to handle this stressful event that your body's going through, okay? So pancreatic reaction, insulin goes up. And then your spleen and your lymph nodes shrink too in traumatic events. So guess what? If we go through a gas repetitively and our adrenals overwork and our general nervous system is kind of spazzed out and our thymus shrinks and our spleen shrinks and our lymph nodes respond by decreasing their function, which is your autoimmune system, predisposing you to all kinds of other conditions, okay? Decrease of body fluids, and then you get this insulin response. Guess what? If you did it over and over, it's a bad thing, isn't it? Guess what else that Selye found in his research? When they started looking at the gut, the stomach, the small intestine, we would get bleeding in the stomach and small intestine and intestinal changes as for increased dilation of, or contraction of the muscles. So some people would go to the bathroom more frequently, some people would not. Just depends on the people. Remember, we're all unique. But guess what? Nothing caused it you can think of. Get bleeding, changes in the stomach or small intestine, small bits of blood from cracking that occurs in that lining from this alarms phase. This is just a picture of the pituitary, which is the master gland, and the thyroid, adrenals, pancreas, ovaries, testicles, and just get an idea that all these get some involvement from a stress reaction syndrome. And here's phase 2, stage of resistance. Adaptation, in other words, your body just went nuts. It just spazzed out. It did all that it needed to protect you from being hurt worse. That's what it did. Adaptation appears to complete. In other words, your body seems to have handled the stress. Remember, it could be a sprained ankle. It could have been drinking all those Diet Cokes. It could have been an emotional issue. It could have been any of those things. Okay? But the adaptation seems to have completed itself. Hormones kind of start leveling out. You're in a weakened state, but they do level out, and this anti-inflammatory general response continues to occur from your adrenals to handle any other inflammatory response. But if you sprain that ankle real bad, you still might have swelling for a few more days locally, because that swelling is serving a purpose of getting lots of blood flow into that area to clean up the damage and grow new tissue to help you heal. Well, that also happens in the stomach lining and all the other places if in fact you just ate a terrible diet. Okay? Swelling, and you gain back that weight again. And the insulin continues to push to keep your blood sugar up to handle the reaction to this traumatic event that your body's gone through. Now, people think of traumatic event as, well, how many times do I get divorced? How many times do I have children? How many times? Well, the truth is, you're going to find out this is happening all the time to many of you just from life. And phase 2 fights further damage. Just kind of tries to shore up your walls and try to make sure that you're not going to be affected again. Here's phase 3. It's a stage of exhaustion. It's the final stage of that condition, that sprained ankle, that emotional offense, that 25 gallons of soda, some traumatic event. Okay, adaptation's over. Here's what happens every time a gas happens to your body: aging, wear and tear, and aging process advances. Period. Every time one of these happens. So those people who are always having general adaptation syndromes because life just seems to be impossible. There's always something going on. They're always reacting like a spazoid. The stages of exhaustion then ages them and ages. You ever seen somebody who's 40 and they look like they're 20, and you see somebody who's 40 who looks like they're 80? Stages of exhaustion have been hit so many times that it really has worn out their system. Maybe the person who's the sun worshiper since they were 10 years old, and by 40 their skin looks like it's worn out and really been torn apart, because sun does do that when you're over treating yourself with sunshine. So the aging advances with every action. So every time you go through a gas, so wouldn't it make sense? You need to find out what offends you, your system, because you can slow aging processes. Okay, remember, you could be 70, but your cell structure could seem to function at a lesser extent, because it's all relevant to you and how you handle your life. But what if stress reappears? The immune systems are kind of low. It's like going to war. You had 10,000 people fighting, and 4,000 were lost, and all you got is 6,000 troops left. Well, guess what? Your immune system will not respond if you go through this again in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you know as well as I do, some people's work or life at home is so constantly event-filled and stressful that this might happen over and over. And we know the glands then have to increase their activity again, and the organs are sluggishly trying to respond to protect and take care of you. Because remember, your body's job is to keep you healthy. Your body's job is to protect you against harmful outside-inside forces so that you keep this homeostasis so you stay alive and you stay out of disease. That's its job. And then nervous breakdowns might occur if that stress occurs over and over and over. And finally, somebody just seems normal, and 2 hours later they're flipped out and at the stress center because they just had enough and their nervous system couldn't handle it anymore. Okay? And the entire hormone system breaks down. Depression occurs. Other things occur from those things. Okay? So you got to realize, what are those stresses that I might be going through? And phase 1 and phase 2 is something that can happen together. Phase 3 can occur throughout a stressful event, or several times within one event. It just repetitively, it just doesn't go away. It's a horrible situation, and it just doesn't go away. Multiple stimulants can build to a blow. Repetitive injuries. Let's say that we're going to the grocery store, and the person who's doing the checkout, and they're doing this all the time. And what do they get? Eventually they get carpal tunnel in the wrist, because they break down so much tissue from repetitively using till finally the body can't respond and heal it. So guess what? Repetitive stress syndrome causing carpal tunnel. Guess what can happen? Multiple things that affect you negatively, like I stubbed my big toe, I had a fight with my wife, I didn't get any sleep that morning, and I go into, and the boss berates me for something I just put 3 weeks work into and put my lifeblood into, and he said it was a failure, you had to start all over. That cumulatively could create a general adaptation syndrome, a gas reaction that sends me into this terrible situation that causes aging and changing in my body. And possibly I could have handled any of those events by themselves, maybe even two, but not all of them at the same time. So remember, it can occur. And in today's fast-paced world, frankly, we don't take the time to heal from one gas to another when we're dealing with the next one. So guess what? Aging, disease process, and hurt. So here's the problem. Harmful stress is determined only after you've had the gas. In other words, many times you will not know until you had all this energy. I'll tell people, you have all this energy, and then they come in and they say, I am so tired, I can barely get out of bed. I am so, or they'll get ready for this. You ever gotten prepared for a major event that you were in control of? And a wedding, and you were getting the wedding all put together, and you worked and you worked and you worked and you worked, and you had all this energy, and then a day after the wedding, you just crash and burn. That is a general adaptation syndrome, where you have lots of energy, and it could last 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, 2 months, and then for a period of time, you have almost no energy, just completely fried. And then your body goes through a reaction, and then you try to handle it again, whatever the stress is. The general adaptation syndrome's length of time gets longer and longer as your body gets more and more unhealthy and cannot handle the stresses in which it goes through. Remember that harmful stress causes this reaction that's an all or nothing reaction. So do you remember all the organ systems that were affected? So guess what? If we're predisposed to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, arthritis, etc., fibromyalgia, if we're predisposed to that, stress can push those diseases into high gear if it continues to happen over and over and over, because it affects the entire body. So we could have sunshine overburning, too loud a sound, a spiritual trauma, a mental trauma, a physical trauma, or a biochemical trauma. Any of those in conjunction builds to a point that finally gets you. And remember, unique to all of us. You've got to look back. Many of you are going, oh yeah, that I've done. I know that I've experienced that multiple times. I just thought I was just tired. So I took a lot of caffeine and I ate a bunch of chocolate and I got through it. Well, you didn't get through it per se. Your body did adapt through it. But you were pushing yourself uphill with no gasoline and trying to get through it in the best that you can, but not realizing what you've really done to yourself. So remember, locally you could have a repetitive irritation. That repetitive irritation could be the diet in which you're eating. Enriched white flours with trans fatty acids, with minimal nutritional value, with no nutrient support, with hardly any water, and lots of coffee and teas, etc., 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 could cause repetitive stress syndrome. Okay? So keep that in mind. So we got chemical stimulation, emotional, diet, spiritual, lack of sleep, anger, lack of forgiveness. All those things build up to have, if you kind of think of this, body has this tolerance level. And then your weakest organ's eventually going to blow out. And every time that you end up doing this, your tolerance gets less and less. You ever seen people say, when they're 40, they hit about 32 and it's just like, oh, they just couldn't handle that job anymore. They just couldn't handle living with that person. They couldn't handle having their family around anymore. They just couldn't handle it. Well, before they did, it was tough, but they did all right. Your body has been beaten down. To rebuild that is your goal here. So local irritation can cause the entire body to go into, so we go to a rock concert. We bang, ba-bang, 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 and it's so traumatic that next day you got all this energy, you're going crazy, and then all of a sudden a week later you want to sleep all the time. Guess what? That loud sound banging away could have created enough stress and trauma to cause a general adaptation syndrome. So let's look at local stimuli. Remember we talked about diet? Excessive sugar, caffeine, carbs, fats, or protein, any of the above in excess. How about the preservatives that are in lots of food, dyes that are many times made of coal tar, and poisons such as mercury in fish because you ate it 7 times that week because you loved it and you were in this perfect situation, but you ate all farm-raised fish which had lots of mercury in it for some reason. Or you have certain foods that you love. And you know you're allergic to them. You know you don't feel that good, but for 3 days, you ate those 2 or 3 ice cream and chocolate cake for 3 straight days, and you end up setting off your system. All of us smile many times when I mention these things, because to ourselves we're going, Yep, did that. Okay, did that one. Oh yeah, I'm doing that one right now, you know. And then it starts making sense as to why in general we not feel good every day. Why I can't get 7 days in a row feeling good. I lucky I get 3 good days a week, and I'm just pushing through it. Drug use, alcohol use, these things are an issue. Alcohol is not an issue for having 1 glass of wine, 2 to 3 ounces. 1 to 2 a day. That's not a problem. Here's the other one, MSG. I can't eat MSG. I have MSG. I've got a foggy brain for 2 to 3 hours. I cannot think straight. MSG was removed from the market in 1980s because of John Olney, MD, who finally proved that MSG seems to affect children's brain development or neurologic development or just neurologic systems, okay? And finally get it out because they were putting it in your kids' food. You know, those little bit of Gerbers, they were having MSG to make it taste good. Problem is, Olney just went crazy. For 7 years, he had to bang away at the FDA, finally got it removed. But what I find is interesting is it was never removed for your and my food, just for our kids' foods. By the way, if you look at certain multiple vitamins for itty-bitty kids, it has it in there, some of them. Please look at it. Please make sure you don't use it. Only's research was, the reason why the FDA finally acted is because the research was pretty positive that why take this chance? Cytotoxins and foods that have been genetically modified should be watched. Detergents, cleaning products, for some people, create a problem. For some people, chlorine for me is a big issue, but other stuff I don't have much problem with. Women in makeup and creams, you're putting it right on your skin. One of your biggest detoxification organs and absorption organs is your skin. If you're using topicals that are unhealthy for you, well, how do you know? Well, you're going to have to do some research. Leslie Bauman, MD, out of University of Miami, has a site, I think it's called the Skin Solutions, skintypesolutions.com. Start reading on there. It'll wake you up and really make you think about some things. So remember, we get an entire body effect. So this is important. So physiologically, mood and food, sweets, fatty foods, salty foods, all to increase our moods, to increase our opiates, our endorphins and kephalins, so that we feel good temporarily, mostly during that PMS time. What's interesting is we need lots of protein, we need lots of good, healthy fruits and vegetables, and lots of water. And guess what we do? We'll drink diet sodas and eat lots of chocolate, which isn't so bad if it's dark chocolate, by the way. Have salty, fatty, extra sweet foods that all can move us into a general adaptation syndrome, make the whole condition of PMS worse than it needs to be because of your habits, okay? You might want to try some different habits and see if you can move away from there. Carolyn Dean, MD, you can look her up. It's Carolyn, Coralyndean, MD. Has some great input for PMS and those type things that might really make a difference, okay? Mental beatings. Just keep picking on yourself day after day after day, creating anxiety. For those that have not looked at our seminar on laughter, haven't looked at our seminar on love, please pick those up. Sometimes this one area can drive us so that we have gas reactions of lack of joy and lack of peace in our life because we mentally are being hard on ourselves and creating anxiety and rerunning the same negative events over and over and over until it causes a gas reaction. All these things can, depending upon you. Depending upon you. Punishing yourself for past issues, never forgiving yourself, or because other people don't forgive you and you punish yourself. You know, get over it. Life is too short to allow any event, bad or good, to end up changing our lives for the future to a point where we don't enjoy it anymore. Having a pity party. Oh, you know, my husband, my wife, my kids, my job, I got too much bill at the end of the money, and I got this and I got that, and get off of it. You know, eventually let's step up, be an adult, and start moving forward. Start extending some love and caring and kindness. Let's worry about others a little bit more than ourselves. Let's move forward, and maybe that pity party will move away real quickly. Okay, digestive concerns. High cortisol triggers. A stomach ache increases and decreases acid. What we know is if we're mentally and emotionally stressed, we can change our acid levels in our stomach, which can change everything in our system. Colon becomes actually active and can actually cramp. So people have irritable bowel syndromes, dysfunctional bowel syndromes will get worse as other factors that have caused a gas reaction will make this condition actually get much, much worse. So increased appetite might occur, decreased appetite might occur. Change in weight, remember we talked about that, 3 pounds up, 3 pounds down. Some people would say 6 to 10 pounds. Just depends on the size of the person, the body type you have. Everyone's unique. Weight gain or weight loss. Here's the immune system. More susceptible to colds and flus and infections. Seems to be getting worse year after year after year. Guess what? You've had enough gas reactions. It's beating down your general systems. You're not as strong as you used to be, and you're having problems in this area. Think about it. What's your body finally going to break down to a point where you have a disease process? Your weakest link. Weakest links are usually genetically tied only 5% of the time and habit influenced. So if we've got a problem with our immune system, we don't eat the things that support a good immune system, or we smoke a lot and drink a lot, or have constant exposure to chemicals that's harmful to us, guess what might happen? The weak link might be an immune system that goes awry and we end up with rheumatoid arthritis perking its head up sooner than it should. Or that cancer seems to be another issue, or some other type of condition. Secondly, yeast overgrowth occurs with antibiotic use over and over and over. If we have just too much antibiotic use, maybe it had to happen. But yeast overgrowth is a real factor that can occur. Again, Carol Lundin wrote a book on yeast connection, the yeast connection and women's health care. That's what I think the name of the book is, Carol Lundin, MD. You might find that valuable. You also will find that on the website also, secondopinion.org. And you can actually kind of meet the author and listen to her be interviewed about the book so you can make a decision whether that's good for you. Inflammation reactions. Immune system controls inflammation. Insulin, glucagon levels. One thing that people forget. You think of diabetes and insulin as the big issue. Okay? But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that glucagon is what your body uses to go over to your liver when you haven't eaten very much to break down fat in your body to put blood sugar up to its normal level. In other words, glucagon is a good way, if that was higher, to be able to lose fat. But if we have an inflammatory reaction or our immune system is really struggling, or cortisol levels that come from our adrenal glands are up, the immune system is going to dysfunction, weight gain is going to get more extensive, and in a few unique cases, weight loss. And glucocorticosteroids, which again is our strong anti-inflammatory effect, starts decreasing arthritic symptoms, fibromyalgia, myofascial pain syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, and just pain, back pain, period. Headaches, things like that start getting worse when the immune systems went nuts. And so does asthma, and allergies get worse. So for all inflammatory responses, that immune system's got to be taken care of. And a gas repetitively occurring in your body, beating down your system until finally the immune system goes, then all kinds of things start showing up that possibly wouldn't before. Nervous system, constant anxiety, lack of peace. Is it because you're just some abnormal person that has one of these things? No, not usually. It usually is developed over time. Multiple things, oversensitive to certain things, stress in situations you don't manage very well, and you're managing